Hi, this is Mrs. Eggerding, and you are watching video 2 for Unit 1 of Algebra 2. Miss Moran and I have some vocabulary about the real number system, which just deals with the numbers that we use in class. And when you were first learning about numbers, before you even knew about algebra, we had these things called the natural numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, as high up as you want to count. And in fact, they are also called the counting numbers. If we stick a 0 at the front of that list and just keep counting normal, we've created a new set of numbers called the whole numbers. And then if we go in both directions, the set of numbers we create here, these are called the integers. And one thing I want you to notice is that the natural numbers are a part of the whole numbers. The whole numbers are part of the integers. We've just added some more numbers here. Okay. The integers, you can also describe them as being the positive and the negative whole numbers. So integers are the positive and negative whole numbers. Now the next category of numbers I can't make a nice little list for, so I'm going to write them in some math notation. It's P over Q, so we're making fractions here, where P and Q are integers. And the one qualification though, Q cannot equal 0 because we don't want to have a 0 in the denominator. These are called the rational numbers. And like everything else, the integers are a part of the rational numbers, because I can take any of these integers, such as -3, and if I put it over 1, I've now made it into a fraction P over Q. Other rational numbers are things like 5 over 7, or maybe 24 over 13. Anything like that would be a rational number. The one thing sometimes comes up is, well, where do I put the decimals? Decimals, it depends on where they go. In this case, if I were to take a decimal like 0.25, I can write that as a fraction, 1/4. So 0.25 is rational because I can write it as a fraction. The decimal 0.6 repeating is the fraction 2/3, so I can write that as a rational number. So when it comes to the decimals, a rational number is a decimal that either repeats, like the 0.6 repeats, or it terminates. Terminate means it's going to end. Okay. So what happens about the decimals that don't terminate or don't repeat? For example, like pi, or maybe the square root of 5. These are called the irrational numbers. And again, if we want to talk about them in terms of decimals, these are the non-repeating and the non-terminating decimals. The only thing you need to be careful about with the irrational numbers is you are going to see things like the square root of 2 over 2. Looks like a rational number because I've created a fraction P over Q, but part of the definition is that P and Q are integers. This radical 2 is not an integer, which makes this number not rational. It makes it irrational. The irrational numbers are also separate onto themselves. This is the one time where you don't have one group going into the next group. So we got a nice little diagram that we can make here with shows you how all these fit together. The irrational numbers are over here. They're separate. They're not a part of anything else, and we can shorten it. In class, I'll use IRR for the irrational numbers. The natural numbers, We use this fancy little n with the double bar on the end for the natural numbers. Whole numbers, we'll use a fancy little W. Integers, going against what you think, it's a Z, not an I. The rational numbers, use the letter Q for rational numbers. Well, why not an R? Well, the real number system, what this all belongs to, this is what we use the double bar R for. When we talk about the real number system, is any number here that exists. Now, just a little preview. There is another number system besides the real numbers. It's called the complex number system. We are going to run into this in Unit 3. And the complex number system involves something called I. And what that does is it allows us to take square roots of negative numbers. Okay, this is just a preview here of what we're going to do in Unit 3. You don't need to worry about it here. We're going to stick to the real numbers most of the time. As for your assignment, book assignment should go pretty quick. 1 through 7 all and 9 to 13 odd. They deal with all of the vocabulary. And then in class today we created our own number puzzles. And so we would like to see what you guys can do with creating your own number puzzle. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will see you in class.